All right, good morning, everyone. We are going to start out with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I would love for Geralda Miller to lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job. All right, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Breckus? Dewar?
Here.
Delgado absent at this time. McKenzie? Jardine? Bobzine? Sheevy?
Here.
Madam Mayor, you do have a quorum of the Reno City Council.
All right, thank you so much. At this time, I'm going to send it to City Manager Saber Newby. Do you have any announcements?
No announcements.
All right, thank you so much. I'm going to send it right back to you, Madam Clerk, for public comment.
Madam Mayor, our first public comment is from Tammy Holt-Still, followed by Eric Goldstein.
All righty. Okay.
Tammy Holt still, Lemon Valley Swan Lake Recovery Committee. The water's still there. I'm still here for the record. Sorry I haven't heard from you, but I imagine you've been busy. Before you, you see right there what's happening on Lemon Drive. This has got bigger and larger, and it's going to go straight to Swan Lake. If you guys aren't concerned about development and stormwater runoff, why would you create such a large area for a large volume of water to go down? And we have a lot of residents in our valley that want to understand this. So to me, I think if you guys really wanted to win over some residents, you would like to explain that. That would be something that would be good for the residents. Also, yesterday, the Washoe County Board of Commissioners meeting happened, and it was a very interesting conversation that happened after public comment between Commissioner Jung and Commissioner Lucy. The thing that you talked about, having one-on-one conversations or getting together so that you guys are on the same track. If you listen to what Commissioner Lucy had to say, maybe it's time to step up and do it, because he was talking about the fact that the way things are going with developers and doing their shopping, when they don't get the answer they want from the county, they come to the city to be annexed so they can do what the city's got in mind. Those are the things you need to be looking at. If you can jump on it, I would. There's a lot out there that needs to be done, and the water's not going anywhere. We're a closed basin. Adding more development adds more affluent water, adds more stormwater runoff, and it's not ending anytime soon. So thank you.
Thank you.
Eric Goldstein, followed by Kathleen Connolly.
Hello, esteemed commissioners. I wish to talk about funding of the arts as you consider that today. Obviously, there are reasons, commercial reasons, to fund the arts. We're trying to reinvent Reno as a place of natural beauty as well as an arts and culture haven. And there are, of course, community reasons. We want to bring our residents together. Looking at the signal boxes, who would possibly ever want to tag those? They're so beautiful the way they are. But I think that we need to consider something beyond the commercial and community aspects. It's easy enough to tell an artist, well, just create art with mass appeal, and then you can fund yourself. And that's certainly, there's nothing wrong with commercial art. In fact, some of it is wonderful. But we need art to help make connections. There are marginalized groups, people who are underrepresented, people who are disconnected from the community as a whole. And we need to know that, and they need to know that we are here with them. And arts are the best bridge we have. We can bring arts to them to help them feel a sense of connection to the community, the larger community. But perhaps more important is we need to know their stories. We will never solve a problem that we don't know about. We won't even try to solve a problem that we do not know about. And it is the painter who will show us their images of strife, and the playwright who will tell their stories of struggle. And in that way, the greater whole, the municipality, will know what its citizens needs, and then we will start to address those problems, and we will connect the community, and we can become a more whole entity. A community shows its priorities by what it chooses to spend its money on. And as you consider what to spend your money on today, I hope you will consider the arts as a very important part of Reno's future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathleen, followed by Geralda Miller.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. Happy birthday, Reno. My name is Kathleen Conboy. I recently joined the team at the Nevada Museum of Art, and I'm here today to talk to you about your budget considerations today for the arts. We'd like to be seen as partners with the city in helping keep the arts and our community a vibrant place to live. So this morning I want to tell you two really short stories. I know time is limited. One is about business and one is about people. The business side of the equation is this. Last year, December 2017, the American Alliance of Museums, of which NMA is a member, issued an economic impact study of museums nationwide. According to their consultant, the national ROI on philanthropic investment in museums is really, truly significant. Museums employ almost 400,000 people nationally, with salaries and operating budgets and the taxes that all museums pay. They have a direct impact of almost $16 billion on the national economy. In fact, if you looked at museums as a city, if you looked at them as a national ranking city, museums would rank 59th, as the 59th largest MSA in terms of GDP. And by comparison, I looked up yesterday the stats. The Greater Las Vegas MSA ranks 36th in the country in MSA impact in GDP. We also, in 2016, the Nevada Museum of Art commissioned an economic input study from UNR and a company called EK Consultants, limited to Washoe County only. EK found that our impact on the economy was $16.9 million that year. That's the year that we refurbished our rooftop and opened the Sky Room. So there was construction money of about $6 million. That was all philanthropic dollars. About $7.5 million for operating, and about $3.5 million impact from people who traveled to Reno primarily for arts and culture events. And this is an ongoing impact short of the construction dollars. So at the most basic level, museums are buildings. We all know that. But once you come inside and you begin to visit our exhibitions, participate in our classes and our educational programs, those experiences can be absolutely transformative. So here's the story I really want to tell you. 2 weeks ago, Friday night, April 27th, in partnership with the Holland Project, which is something we do twice a year, we had Teen Art Night. We had 700 teenagers in the building. And we had a DJ, we had catering by Hug High Culinary, we had stations for button making and poster making and perfume making. It was really an exciting evening. And we received a note from a teacher afterwards who said, I just want to read you an excerpt. The event was such a huge hit with the kids that they're already asking about the next event. It was really one of those opportunities that sparked all of this creativity and creative energy within our youth, so that they really want to develop those interests and try things for themselves. And this teacher goes on to say that that kind of feedback made his heart melt. These are kids who didn't fit into the athlete or the smart stereotype. And Teen Night opened their eyes to the different possibilities ahead of them. And so, your support of the arts, based on what you all know and understand about the important role that they play, is so important to the future of Reno. And as you talk about the budget today, I'm hoping you do everything in your fiscal power to enhance the money available to the Arts Commission.
Thank you so much.
Geralda Miller, followed by Sharon Honig-Bear.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Mayor and members of the council. My name is Geralda Miller, and I serve as the vice chair on the Reno Arts and Culture Commission, and I'm also co-owner of ArtSpot Reno. For the past 4 years, I've been fortunate to take local residents, visitors, on monthly tours that showcase our city's exceptional public art. I've watched their excitement as they encounter sculptures, signal boxes, and murals. I'm proud to tell them that our city saw the value in public art, made the investment, and built an impressive art collection. Jeff Schomburg and Laura Kempton's Believe sculpture that sits right here in City Plaza is a clear message that Reno believes in the arts. Reno understands the value and importance arts and culture have on our residents and visitors. The arts are important because cultural tourism is real and travelers seek our authentic culture wherever they go. The arts are important because art adds beauty to our city. Stroll along the Riverwalk and watch the people gazing at what they think is a butterfly in the sky. Walk through Bicentennial Park and wonder why a chubby little man holding a Coors beer has a rhinoceros tail. And by the way, Bicentennial Park is a fine example of how collaborations enhance the city's the city's reach for funding. It's a wonderful partnership with the Downtown Rotary Club. Another example of how collaborations enhance the reach of city funding was the Reno Mural Expo. Art Spot Reno had 31 artists paint 32 murals, most of them downtown. Those murals are helping to make our streets safer and walkable. Almost every block on 2nd Street, from Arlington to the ballpark, now has a mural. From the colorful wise owl with its piercing eyes to the kissing couple in Douglas Alley. We've got public art in neighborhoods. I can't think of anything more beautiful than Peter Hazel's dragonfly that juts out of Virginia Lake. But did you know that one project like that wipes out our entire public art budget for the year? It's hard to create impactful art with such a limited budget. So I encourage you to show us through increasing the budget just how much you truly believe in the arts and its future in our city. Show us that you want Reno and to be an arts destination where culture is alive and the arts thrive. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sharon Honig-Bear, followed by Sam Dene.
We're being a tag team here this morning. Well, good morning, Mayor Sheevy and members of the council. My name is Sharon Honig-Bear, and I am the enthusiastic chair of the Reno Arts and Culture Commission. Our duty is to serve as the official advisor to you in matters related to the cultural life of the community. Through our 11-member commission, through our subcommittees, and through our partnerships throughout the community, we're proud to reshape Reno into big arts, little city. The City Council is our most important partner, and I'm here today to speak about the Commission's budget. Some facts. We have not recovered from pre-recession funding. In fiscal year 2003-2004, that's a long time ago, the arts received over $400,000 in grants funding. We're at half of that now. The arts have not seen a substantial or reasonable increase in funding for grants. We're approximately at the same funding level as we were in 2006-2007. So here we are at the budget hearings. And what would we like to see? We'd like to see a larger slice of the room tax. Projections show an income of about $1.3 million. So how about committing to giving the arts any amount that exceeds those projections? We promised we could do wonders with that money, and we'd make the city look great. So what would we like to see? Let's look at using some of the blight funds to bring more art to the downtown area. Art is tangible, visible, and it cleans up empty spaces. So what would we like to see? to acknowledge the Commission's priorities when selecting projects to be funded by the room tax. Only 2 small projects totaling a meager $12,500 were selected. Higher priorities and more important suggestions never made it to the possibility list. Some of these include the restoration of the pre-recession $50,000 challenge grant money, support of our public art maintenance fund, and increase in grants funding. It was heartbreaking to have to tell so many arts organizations during grants hearings that we just couldn't fund them to the extent that they wished. So what would we like to see? Your trust in us to advise you. The Commission would like to review all allocations relating to the arts and offer guidance to the Council. Right now, Council bypasses the Commission and makes direct allocations to very worthy groups like Art Town and the Pioneer Center. But with our advice, we could work together to look at the fairest distribution of city funds for the arts. So I ask you the question, where does Reno want to be on the arts spectrum? Are you content with business as usual? Or are you interested in pushing the envelope a bit and expanding Reno's mark as a cultural hub? We notice that there's a room tax reserve of $300,000. Why can't some of that be directed to the arts? Opportunity, costs, and the payoff for Reno is a reimagined landscape for visitors and locals alike. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our last public comment is from Sam Dene.
Sam DNA, the heart and soul, the body and mind of Reno government. I'm an Air Force Academy graduate. I have more gravitas than all of the government up there at the podium. As I lead in, these students from Reno High, I saw them out in the lobby, and they said they were coming to the meeting to see the government. You know what I told them? I am the government, and I'm going to prove that I'm the government. And by the way, I can verify for their teacher up there that they are at the meeting. I told them to come to the podium and just verify it. But anyway, my verification suffices. Again, I'm an Air Force Academy graduate. I've been to these meetings and these podiums. Not that I'm really good at it, but I've gotten fairly good at it through the years. But I've been coming to these podiums protecting the citizens from government and especially from the media, wacko freaks, Reno Gazette, and so on, for well before even your mothers and fathers got out of high school. Also, I appreciate having the armed guard over there protecting Sam, me, from who knows what's happening in the audience. And as far as public art goes, I support it more than anybody else. But public art in Reno, without at least 100 paintings of the government, me, is defunct, not defunct, is deficient. And she's nodding her head. There should be caricatures, bobbleheads, whatever you want to call them, of me. I'm an interesting person. Humble? Yes, sir. First of all, we've got this situation where the media wacko freaks hate law enforcement, and they especially hate Jason Soto, the chief of police, who I nominated and appointed and swore in. They hate him down in their pantyhose, and the reason they do is because Sam likes him. Anyway, right now we've got this new deal where the man who the city attorney fired summarily, Jack Campbell, has now come back and had, you might say, the ultimate revenge. He's come back into the courts and won a jury trial against the city, and that would be against our city attorney. I'm not taking sides on this whole thing because I have been the victim of more than a few rotten juries. So I don't know if that jury made the right decision or not. I'm not going there. I'm just saying it's kind of an interesting situation that Jack Campbell has come back. And by the way, when he was fired, I came to the podium and vehemently defended him and said, you've got to at least give him a reason why you're firing him. Anyway, that's all over with. The chief of police got his picture on the front page again, more pictures than all the chiefs in history of Reno. Last but not least, I want to talk about money laundering. Money laundering between EDON, the state of Nevada, and the Tahoe Reno Industrial Complex. You say, what is money laundering? Money laundering is obfuscation of where money came from, where it's going, and what's being done with the money. And if that Tesla trick Nevada scheme isn't money laundering, you've never seen it before. that we gave them, the citizens, you gave them $43 million to Tahoe Reno Industrial Complex. Where did that money go? They also built them a $100 million freeway. You and you and you and you. Where did that money go? Somebody should investigate that obfuscation and that money laundering.
All right, thanks, Sam.
Madam Mayor, we have Maury Kabaz who would like to speak.
Morning, Shivi Council. Thank you for the opportunity. You know me, you know why I'm here. I've been trying to get my property back and get the overarching case resolved. The latest is that it's been communicated to me to file a proper complaint and get a settlement, a small amount of settlement from the city. I'm working on it, I'm budgeting on it. I'm budgeting for it. As far as the other subject, the clandestine effort that was made in October to get this matter resolved, and how the occult and this perpetrator Reza interfered and sabotaged it, and how a woman was violated by these occult members. I'm writing a letter to the governor. Sometimes occult activity materializes in form of crimes. This is a rare opportunity to catch them and to punish them, and send a letter, send a message that it's not okay. That kind of crimes and activities are not okay in Reno. I'm sending a copy of it to San Francisco Chronicle and others like New Yorkers. And as far as the criminal complaint against this man, I will be submitting it to the district attorney and Sheriff Allen, and it goes from there. I'd like to be able to sue this man because he's like 80 years old, a sadist. I'd like to be able to sue him for everything he has before he dies. So whatever punishment suitable for him is okay with me as long as he's alive. He was arrested at the DMV back in August of 2016. And that's it. Thank you much. Oh, I have a questionnaire for the woman who was violated, one-page questionnaire for her that will be given to the authority. You will get a copy of it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Madam Mayor, we have no further general public comment today.
All right, thank you very much. Take it away.
With that, we are on approval of the agenda.
All right, I'm actually going to hand it over to City Manager Sabra Newby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to let everyone know we have a lot of work to do today. We have this budget hearing today. We have another one on Friday. The final budget adoption is scheduled for May 23rd, which is your next regular City Council meeting. Today, we will be breaking probably around 11:20. So we do have a presentation. We'd like to get through that. So in order to kind of get through that and get all the questions answered, please make sure that your questions are succinct. And also, if you have additional questions that we aren't able to handle today or get to today, please contact both Debbie and I individually via email to ask those questions. Hopefully, we will be coming back from that break that we're taking around 11:20. We'd like to do that, but we do need to end today at 1. So we're kind of on a tight timetable. So I just wanted to get that out there.
Okay.
All right.
All right, great, I appreciate it. So I'm going to try to keep everyone on track. Okay, with that being said, Madam Clerk, next item.
Madam Mayor, we are looking for approval of the agenda.
All right, thank you so much. At this time, may I get a motion? I have a motion, I have a second.
There is point of, Madam Mayor, for clarification to the requester in the audience, there is public comment on B, which is the presentation, which we are not at yet.
Okay. So I have a motion and I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Madam Mayor, we are on now the budget workshop presentation, in which I do have public comment from Sam Dene.
All right, go right ahead.
Sam Dene, and not to have stepped on the city clerk over there, she was absolutely right. I just got a little bit confused between approval of the agenda and presentations. And I certainly didn't want the audience and the city council to overlook public comment, which I know that our beloved mayor would never do. And what we have here is the budget, one of the most important things that happens at our, and that's probably why these students are here today. The budget, the most exciting part of these meetings is the budget. And Sam Dene has hardly missed a budget meeting in 20 years. And by the way, everybody, I do this philanthropically. I do it for free. I do it out of the goodness of my heart and maybe some epiphanies from up above from God. You know what an epiphany is, of course, a sudden message from God. And I get these messages. So the reason I would like to have public comment beforehand, so you can at least consider some of the things that I might suggest here in my measly 2 minutes left, which is okay, 2 minutes. First of all, I recommend highly, and I'm probably on the same page with most of them, I recommend highly that we increase the police force. We have a lot of retirements taking place, and we're going to need a lot more police than we have right now. And all of the jurisdictions of the support police and whatever else. And the same thing goes with the fire department. For the government students in the back there, government is created, you know why? It's a question on your quiz when you get back to school. Government was created to protect the citizens. That's what government's about. Art is wonderful. It's nice things. Even allowing Sam coming to the podiums are nice. But government was, and actually I'm protecting the citizens when you think about it. But anyway, it was meant to, so number one on the agenda should to make sure that we have enough policemen and firemen. And there you go. So I'm supporting that. I think we should, again, fund the arts. These people had some very good suggestions of where you might be able to find some money for the arts. Arts is very important, as they explained. I'm the other kind of artist. I'm a fairly good country western rock and roll guitar playing singer, and she's nodding her head. Thank you. And I don't know how you can fit it on the agenda, but you certainly ought to consider it psychologically. What Reno needs more. Well, we need police and firemen. What we need as much as police and firemen is we need an honest newspaper. Reno needs an honest newspaper. And Reno has right now the most dishonest newspaper in all of America. Donald Trump couldn't say it more emphatically. The Reno Gazette is the most dishonest newspaper. And I say that for many reasons, but the main reason is their insane fear and jealousy of this man right here, who is responsible for 92% of the good things about Reno, from Burning Man to public art and everything in between. And yet the media, the Reno Gazette, never, ever, and it's not ego, I'm humble. The Reno damages the city of Reno, hates the city of Reno because they refuse to report the brilliant things that I bring to the podium.
All right, thanks,
Any
Sam.
questions?
Madam Mayor, I
No.
have no further general public comment
Thank
or
you,
comment
Sam.
on the presentation.
All right. Good morning, Mayor and Council members. Deborah Lochner, Finance Director. Today we're going to talk some about your budget, and we do have a follow-up meeting on Friday, so if we don't get through it, we will get through it on Friday. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's recommended in the budget by the city manager. We'll go into the general fund departments, the non-general funds, the CIP, and the redevelopment agency. So that's kind of the order of what we will be talking about. So we'll start with the city manager's recommended budget. The recommended budget for fiscal year 2018-19, chart didn't come out very good. We have an issue with our Microsoft products not necessarily connecting, so we'll get this corrected for you. But we have a $600 million budget. The general fund and the sewer fund, the general fund's 35%, the sewer fund, general fund's the blue one. The sewer fund is the kind of mustard colored one in the front, and that is 26% of our budget. The other big slice, the green one, that is our debt service fund. And that makes up about 10% of the budget as well. So we'll talk about the general fund to begin with. Our Re-estimated budget for fiscal year 17-18. We have had some of our revenues come in higher than we projected. So we are actually will be managing with almost $3 million at the end of the year that is coming back to us. From that, the finance department and the city manager have worked out a recommendation of how those funds should be put out as for one-time uses. And this is a list of those things. One thing I do want to point out is for fire, you see $700,000 there. That is a match to a grant that we're working on getting for a ladder truck. So that's the city's 50% match. And so we recommend that we fund that. The Parks Department is moving their administrative staff out to McKinley to better serve the public and that they serve. So we added some money to help them move. As you see, there are some additional funding for IT for a hardware upgrade. That was something we heard was important to the council to continue to support our infrastructure both within the city and within the community. So we have also included some additional CIP funding for some various needs. Again, all of these are one-time funds because money left over at the end of the year is one-time source of funds. So for the fiscal year 18-19 budget, we initially reported that we had a $5.5 million deficit. With the revenues that came in higher and the additional 3% marijuana, I guess a business license fee on gross receipts, which is about $1 million, we're able to get that deficit down to just about $3.9 million, which is the use of fund balance in excess of the 8.3%. Again, I'm sorry about the chart, but I will explain. So the big blue piece of the pie, that is our consolidated tax. It's about $67 million and is about 3.5 or 35% of our overall budget. That is an increase of about 4.5% over last year.
What's the blue?
The blue one is consolidated tax, the C-tax.
C-tax. Didn't hear you.
The mustard color one in the front, that's property tax. Property tax is $51 million, and it's 27% of our budget. We've projected that one to increase by 4% over this current year. The other green one, that one would be franchise fees, $25 million, and that's 13% of the budget. The purple is licenses and permits, and that is 21 million. It's 11% of the budget.
Madam City Manager, could we take a half a second break and see if we can get?
Well, we've got it here.
Madam Vice Mayor, I have
See,
additional.
but- No, it's misprinted too.
Oh, wow.
So we can't, we're listening and we can't tie numbers
Oh, I can put them up.
because everything comes out as cell
It has all
range.
my notes on it. Okay.
You don't have. And when you go back, could you say the franchise fee, how much it's going up and how much the license and the C-tax?
Yeah, well, we can put this up here.
In the hard copy that we have.
Well, there's this hard copy that came with the agenda, and then it's not. That's good. No, because this goes right into the department. While we're waiting, I have two questions. I thought at the FAB last week, you said that licenses and permits were coming in less than the current year fiscal. And with that underground storage tank, what is that and why do we have to take that out? And why can't we pursue a brownfields grant for that?
I don't know where that storage tank is, and I don't know what the department went through as far as their analysis of why to take those out. Most of those underground storage tanks are really, they get old and they get leaky, and the best thing is to remove them if you don't, if it may be an abandoned one. I really don't know, but I can find out.
Yeah, I mean, is it on city property?
It's a city-owned storage tank.
Uh-huh, okay.
So
But license and permits, I thought this FY they were coming in less.
they are coming in less this year.
So then
but
why are we building a budget that's based upon them coming in
Because we
higher?
have new sources of license and permit revenues coming in next year, such as
that-
the marijuana tax.
But you had marijuana as a separate line on that list.
Because we wanted to highlight it, not because but it's included in the license.
Oh, it's inclusive in that. Okay.
We just wanted to highlight that that's a new revenue
Okay.
source for the city,
Okay.
so that's coming in, and that's part of why we don't have that almost $6 million deficit this coming year.
And the sale of properties, is that our city properties?
It would be our city properties.
And I guess I'm Madam Manager, I guess, are these like things that we've already talked about or something you're thinking about proposing to us?
This is our first proposal back to you, so.
You
this
have
is a proposal.
identified some properties that you think we could sell next year?
I believe that actually the sale of properties.
That was properties that were
was
sold this current fiscal year that we're saying we should take those sales proceeds and spend them on one-time funds.
It's the fire station down
The
south.
fire, yeah.
The cyan.
Okay, go
Okay.
right ahead. Let's let her get through this, and then we can ask questions later, okay? All right, thank you, everyone.
So overall, this is the numbers behind the chart. So you can see we have projected that our property taxes will increase by 4%. The license and permits, actually, because of the new marijuana tax, are going up 7.4%. The consolidated tax, 4.5%. And then you see some decreases in our intergovernmental charge for services and fines and forfeitures. The intergovernmental is decreased because of grants. So as we get grants and, we remove the ones that are gone and we get the ones that are active stay. So that fluctuates year to year. The charges for services is down because of we've reduced the strike team revenue. It comes in and it's part of the projected, but it's not necessarily part of what we put in the budget because it's also an unknown. And the fines and forfeitures are down a little bit as well. So we show you a picture of the revenues and expenses where we've taken out the one-time monies, the transfers, so you can really see true revenues and expenses. And as you can see, they are getting closer, so that's good news. They're not quite together yet, and we'd really like to see the blue line above the red line. So what we're looking here is overall the general fund expenditures, kind of a comparison. You have your 16-17 actuals, you have your 17-18 re-estimated amount, and then you have your 18-19 recommended. The salaries and benefits for the re-estimated does include grants and strike team, so you just want to tell you where sometimes they're in there and sometimes they're not. I just want to make sure you understand when they are. So here's another chart I will put up.
If we can pause for just a second, we can transition over to the PDF version of this presentation.
Great.
PDF online is not better.
May, while we're waiting, does the end balance of 15 million correspond to the 8.3%?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the lowest we've been in several years.
We're looking at, it's the 8.3 calculation.
What's our target and what's policy target and what's our
The
bare
policy
minimum?
target is 8.3%.
Okay.
So we're at that.
I believe we took the ending fund balance down last year, didn't we? To
We did, it was
8.1?
below, it was at 7%.
7%.
Yes, so last year we took the fund balance down to 7%. This year we maintained the 8.3% goal.
But that's, the 16, 17 column reflects more than.
Madam Clerk, it looks like we have the correct PDF up on the screen, so if we can continue.
Okay, so again, the general fund expenditures are $193 million. The largest piece of that really is the salaries and benefits. As a service organization, and we do need people to provide the service to the community, and so you would expect to see that as being our largest spending category.
Wait, can you go back? I'm sorry. So OPEB was
32%.
32%.
Well, it's
62.
benefits and OPEB. It includes OPEB, so it would also include PERS and healthcare and all those other benefits that we provide. And we'll get you a completed copy of this, so we can email you the copy so you don't have to write it all down. We also like to show you how the expenditures break out by departments as well. So you can see, again, police and fire are the largest spending, but that's expected because they also, they're the largest discretionary spending piece of the city. And the general fund is our discretionary revenue. It's tax supported, and those services are tax supported. So we've also provided a chart to show how the ending fund balance in the general fund has moved over time. And again, it has gone down. We've had times where there's been a significant turnback, particularly in the recession when you have a lot of fluctuation in your staffing. You end up with money that comes back to you unspent because the staff left or there was changes. So that's oftentimes during a recession, you will see those fund balances go up, and then you'll see them be spent for one-time monies to continue to rebuild organizations. And understanding that no organization coming out of a recession rebuilds exactly like they were before. They rebuild in a more efficient manner and look at the services they provide to the community in the best way they can.
I thought you just said we took last year's fund end balance below the 8.3, but that shows it above, almost at 12.
So that was the ending actual. When we budgeted it to be at 7.
Okay.
But the actual, because there was a lot of unspent money
Yeah.
and turned back, we sold some property, there was things that happened, that's the actual.
Okay.
So in the prior study sessions, we wanted to let the council know, we did listen to you. So we have put together how this budget supports what we heard were the priorities of the council going forward. So for public safety, starting with the police department, the council one of their priorities was appropriate staffing. While we may not have the resources to add have the police force everybody would like to have, including our police officers as well as the council, we've done things with our limited resources to provide support to the department in various different ways. So we continue to use have the overhire program available for their use. We have provided staffing to support the body camera mandate. That's 2 FTEs. We'll be helping with that process. We've added some additional staff to help with some of the non-emergency calls so that it will free up our officers to handle the things that are a larger priority and for a need for a sworn officer. So we've added 2 community service officers and the associated vehicle they need to do their job. In addition, with the Department of IT has looked at how they provide services to the police department. And what we've done is take a higher level position and split it to provide additional resources to the department through the IT department. So that actually adds an additional FTE to help support some of the their technology within the department. For the fire department, again, and you'll see this theme throughout every department we talk about, appropriate staffing is a priority of the council. So for the fire department, we have continued the overhire program, and we've done a reorganization of their fleet shop, which upgrades some of their positions. And you'll see that in a minute. Also, one of the priorities was apparatus replacement and dealing with the fire department apparatus. So this budget does show the 50% match for a ladder truck using 17-18 funds, and then it shows it has the funding for an additional fire engine in fiscal year 18-19. We've upgraded or added an additional position, a fire equipment superintendent position. I believe it's an upgrade. There's no new positions within the fire department. There's upgraded positions. And we've set up, because the apparatus replacement is a priority, we actually set up a separate account within our capital improvement program so that we can gather the funds to continue a replacement program. And we're working on some strategies to put in place, and we will be bringing back a presentation to the council to discuss how we will deal with the fire department's need for vehicles and apparatus replacement. So for the city council, there were had some priorities of historical resource consultant. We're put some money in there to do some strategic planning to help address goals and needs of the council and how we can get that really solidified to help staff with the direction. We have feel it's important to start auditing the people that pay franchise fees. So this is the first in a series of audits we will be doing of those who pay franchise fees to the city. We've taken and added $250,000 of general fund to the Title 18 update. Last year it was budgeted using building funds, which was not necessarily an appropriate resource for that project. So we transferred the money to be general fund, which is a more appropriate source. And we've provided funding for the implementation of the business improvement district. Another council priority is fiscal sustainability. So this budget does restore our workers' comp and OPEB liability fundings. As per council prior direction, we had a direction to start funding those programs. We suspended that funding or kept it at the 16-17 level with last year's budget. This year's budget actually allows us to put it back up at the level of what the council desired. And then we've also added some money for severance liability funding. We found that that has been an area within our budget that's problematic, and there's certain positions that just we can't hold open until the payout's paid for. You have long-term employees sometimes. They may have the only position in the city and you need to refill those right away. So we felt it was important to be able to provide some flexibility to be able to do that within our staffing resources. For the Parks Department, one of the priority we heard really was park maintenance.
Ask a question, a matter of process. Are you going through all the departments?
Yeah, that comes later.
What do you mean that comes later?
We
It looks
have
like
a-
you're going through the departments right now.
This is council priorities.
Oh, okay. Maybe we could
You'll
take a
see a
pause
lot of
after
the same
that.
stuff
Okay.
in the
Yeah,
departments,
okay.
and we'll be able to go a little
Okay.
quicker through them, but we wanted to
Okay.
show how this budget supports the council's priorities.
Okay.
So for the Parks Department, we heard park maintenance was very important. This budget does add trees and some tree equipment, about 175 trees. It does has a parks weeding program, and it continues the Truckee River cleanup crew. The grant ended in fiscal year 17-18, but we continued the funding for that crew. And we've, again, looked at how we can, with little resources, augment how we provide the service. So we took 2 part-time positions, and by adding a half of a person, essentially, they were both 75% positions, we're able to get 2 full-time positions out of that, and that will help address some of the maintenance issues and some of the new parks that are coming online. For Human Resources Department, council priority of appropriate staffing and some contracted assistance. So this budget does a little reorganization within the department. It is cost neutral. The reason why you see the TBD after Human Resource Manager is we're still looking at that particular position to fine tune exactly what it is the department needs. So it is budgeted right now at the higher level position. We may come in with something slightly less, but this budget does allow for that. It does also pull one of the resources into dedicated working on workers' compensation issues. And when you do that, you often find you can get significant savings by actively managing your workers' compensation cases and the strategies around that. And then we've also are working on some strategies to support the management of citywide training. And what we have also done in this budget is we've added some money so that we can do a citywide class and comp study because we really need to make sure that we have a good handle on our staffing and the appropriate pay for that staff going forward. For the Information Technology Department, we, as you saw earlier, some of the 17-18 money, we have put some money in there for some hardware upgrades to help with some of their unfunded needs. For community development, the council priority was to deal with some of our Acela issues. So this budget does include funding to deal with that. So there's $75,000 in there for module improvements. One of those is adding the business license module, but there's additional improvements. And then the inspection application, which is a different software, is about $15,000 to replace that. And also, we're looking at, appropriate staffing within this department. We've provided some money so that some of their large-scale developments, they can do outside plan reviews. For Public Works, same theme, appropriate staffing. For this, we have added one senior civil engineer to support streets and sewer projects. And we've added some money to repair the roof of the City Hall parking garage, and that is coming from the 17-18 one-time funds. So overall, the additional full-time employees that we've recommended be added to this budget, there are 6 within the general fund. There are within the street, sewer, and fleet funds an additional 3. And then we have staffing we have additional staffing, and this is an incorrect page. It should be 3.5 people that we've added because there were 2 positions within IT. So we just, it is the reorganization with police where they split 1 position into 2, so that's 1 additional FTE. And then we've added an IT position for Acela support for to deal with that software program. And what you see here for fire, that is the upgrade of the positions for the reorganization we did in their fleet area. And parks, that's the conversion of the 2 part-time positions into 2 full-time positions. So that one does cost us a little bit. The fire department one does cost us a little bit, but overall, all that funding is included in the budget.
Question
Can I
before we
ask
go?
you really quickly?
Yes.
Councilwoman? The HR manager, I thought Mandy was our HR manager. What exactly is that?
So Mandy's our HR director. This one is within there to help manage certain functions within the department. And so we're looking at, is it going to be an HR program manager or is it going to be maybe a training manager? That's what we're trying to decide. But it would be something that would manage those programs citywide for that department.
And that one isn't necessarily a new
It's a
position. It's sort of
reorganization.
a reorganization of the department as a result of Mandy's promotion and then some other movement to ultimately, ideally get to the point that was made during the hearings about having a dedicated trainer to expand training for all of our employees.
All right. Councilman Ruckus, did you?
Yeah, on the
looks like you're
previous
gonna
slide, I
come in.
thought that fire department one, I thought you said previously the fire equipment superintendent wasn't a new position, it was an upgrade.
So currently, what we're trying to do is get the fire equipment superintendent. It is a civil service position. So what needs to happen is there needs to be a recruitment for that position. Depending on how that recruitment works out, it could be a new position. It could be an upgrade of an existing position. At this point, we don't know. So what we've done is add the fire equipment superintendent, which would be, yes, one whole new position.
Okay, but if it doesn't end up being a new position, then where does that, where will that money go then if we don't add that position? Will it come back into the general fund?
We would then reevaluate the situation with the fire equipment superintendent in place and see if the lower position was vacated, what to do with that position.
Okay.
We may keep it
Okay.
in place. We may decide that there maybe is a different need within
Okay.
fire for a position. So we would
Okay.
evaluate at that point.
Well, and the fire equipment superintendent is not an existing position within the budget, so we have to actually add that.
Yeah, no, I
FTE.
get that. It's just, I've been looking at the Reno budgets for 20 years, and this is the year where the jumps of the two public safety departments jump up. I mean, we're usually around 22, 23 for fire and 34, 33 for police, and they've just taken a jump. And, I mean, obviously our situation has changed so much. It's just that share stayed constant for really decades, even during the downturn. And now it's going the other way. So I just, and I know we're short both of those from where we were before, and we have more people in the city of Reno. It's our core service, but it's just, wondering what that would be absorbed back into if that doesn't become an added position. Thank you.
Madam Vice Mayor, if I may.
Yes, Councilmember McKenzie.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. And we may see an increase in budget in those, but you've got to realize that our staffing levels in those two departments are well below what they were before the recession.
I think I just said that. I think I just acknowledged that.
We had 400 uniformed officers in 2008. We've got 328 now. We've got two stations that are basically browned out that haven't got manning. So we've got two stations that are ambulance stations. They're not fire stations because we haven't got the manpower to fully man those stations. And most of the manning on those stations is done with overtime rather than having people assigned to that station permanently. So we have major shortfalls in manpower in those two departments, and they should be seeing a major increase, not the minor increase you're seeing. And when we've got people talking about not recovering from pre-recession levels within the city, like we heard in public comment this morning, they've got to realize that our core services have not recovered. Our Public Works Department is below 2008 levels. Our Parks Department is below 2008 levels. There's nobody recovered from the recession, and we're not going to see a recovery for a number of years if we ever do see one, and unless we can fix the financial model we're faced with.
No, I mean, I acknowledge that. That was in my comments. It was just really a comment and observation that the re-engineering of our budget, post-recession, maybe that public safety just seems to be trending upward, a little bit this year, but this year seems to be the bigger jump, of the share. Thank you.
Go ahead, keep going.
I just have a question too.
All right, let's keep them brief. We gotta get rolling.
I don't know what happened to my pad. Just a real quick, since we're on council priorities, I think you've done a really good job, as I recall from our previous workshop, things we talked about. The one thing that I know I had mentioned and that others care about was in our Reimagine Reno, we included beginning a stormwater management plan. We said, okay, it's gonna take like 20 years. I mean, and lots of money to build this thing, but that we had to start planning for it. And I didn't know if we were thinking about doing that with existing resources or if you thought we needed to add some funds or what we were thinking.
City Manager Newby?
I think we began that process, and was it the last meeting? Come on up, Mr. Flansburgh. He thought he was going to sit there and enjoy the meeting. We began that process with a study, and we are underway with that. We hope to have the results of that study to you at the end of the year, yes? And then, based on your direction at that point, we will probably embark on a rate study after that, which will probably need to be funded. And I'd like to hear your plans.
So, for the record, John Flansburgh, Director of Public Works. Out on the street right now is an RFQ, or RFP, I should say, for the stormwater management program. We're looking for a feasibility study as step one. That's what we intend to bring back to the council in late November or December. And then from that, step two, if the council desired, would then be to go out and do the larger study on top of that. That would then get us into rates and moving the whole program forward.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you. And then my second question was, so this morning at 7:30, I was out at down in South Reno. As you guys know, it's been a focus of huge amount of growth and development. And one of the things that came up while I was gone was rezoning a property to add yet more homes. About a year and a half ago, it had been suggested, maybe 2 years ago, that we do an area plan for Southeast Reno. And what I was wondering, and I guess I'll just ask, I can ask offline after, but I wanted to make sure that the people in planning knew that we're kind of at a crisis point on that with Sunny Hills, Daybreak proposed, rezoning of properties, the road system down there, the resources down there. So I really think it's essential that we get started on that area plan, and I'll say more about it later, but it's got to happen before all these projects are in a total collision course. It's sort of where we are with North Reno, but at South Reno, it is happening now. I just toured all the pads that are being built. There's another 900 homes in Caramello. So I just wanted to get this on the radar under council priorities. You know, it's been percolating, but I feel like we're almost at a crisis point now. So this is really for you, Manager Newby. So, all right, talk to you about it later.
Thank you very much. Go ahead,
Thanks.
keep going.
For those of you maybe tuning in on your computer, we have updated on the Reno.gov site the correct presentation that has all of the correct labels. Thank you.
All right, so this slide here really is just a list of the dollars associated with the things I just talked about that we are included in this budget to support what we heard from the council. So it's about $2.23 million of additions or of things we've done within the budget to meet those council priorities we heard in the last few sessions we talked about the budget.
If I may, you know, I mean, it's tight, and we've, you know, you guys have done a good job getting us some distance, but when I see the Building Enterprise Fund has 10 million balance,
That's where I was going
it
to.
makes me wonder, what is the plan? And I've been asking this for about 4 or 5 years to different people than you two. And what is the plan? And then, you know, what I thought was a very reasonable thing, which was doing Title 18 with that fund. You know, Title 18 oversees building and development, good use of it. All of a sudden, no, can't do it, but we can buy, you know, new pickups every 5 years for building inspectors. I don't get it. And in a similar way, from the planning need, when we did the downtown plan, I remember asking, what's the northwest quadrant? Oh, that's an area that doesn't have a defined character. You need to do another plan for it. Well, since then, we've had massive demolitions, massive displacements, no plans, piecemeal development proposals. I'm looking for a planning effort for that area because we said we would do that as implementing our downtown plan. So, you know, I don't, you know, you say that it's not a good use of those funds, but you're not explaining to me why or what the $10 million balance plan is. And I would say the council should take discretion, back that money back into doing Title 18 out of that fund, and then take that $250,000 and do some other planning efforts with that. That's what I would suggest.
And I had actually written that down to the Building Enterprise Fund and whether that could be used for some of these planning initiatives.
It really can't be used for planning, it's for building. And so that's really is the distinction in looking at the overall what's in Title 18. It is a planning document it does say how we're going to build things, but it is a planning document. And we couldn't find the nexus to the building it would be very small dollars of what you could use out of the building fund, and we just didn't want to get in trouble with the state for using our building enterprise fund inappropriately.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see that. I mean, every single building permit is thrown up against analysis to how it corresponds and is regulated by Title 18. I mean, every single one. So I'm just having a really difficult time. And then the bigger question of, what are you going to do with $10 million in that fund balance?
So perhaps what I think would be a good thing is if we could get some clarification about state law and what the building fund is available to use for sometime before Friday to the council members, just to clarify that. And then perhaps we also make note of this topic for the next legislative session, so that if there needs to be a broader definition of what you can use that for, that we seek that broader definition.
And I would like to see a list of what we've used that for in the past. So, okay.
Okay, and we might not be able to get that by Friday, but we can certainly get you a list of what
Okay.
we usually do.
Thank you.
Yeah. So also want to show the council priorities I just talked about, what's funded through the other funds as well. So you see how the room tax fund, the park maintenance portion of the room tax fund is being used to continue with that park maintenance. And our street fund they're buying a brine machine and doing sidewalk repairs. In the sewer fund, we show a lift station and some temporary maintenance workers to help with vegetation management, and of course the equipment that's associated with that. In the building permit fund, we have the Acela work, the inspection program, and the outside plan review for those large-scale developments. Overall, well, that's really the bigger recap, and then from here we go into the individual departments and talk about what's in their budgets. So,
Yes, right ahead.
Thank you very much. And you have to forgive me, I was not at the last meeting because of the situation with my son. So recap on the parking garage roof, 650,000. Is that because it's falling in, or because we want to redo it so we can park on it?
it's so that we can fix it and it can be parked on.
Right
Because it's
now,
falling in.
it isn't structurally able to support cars on the roof there. That's why there's barriers around the top of the roof if you look down at it, and we aren't able to park there, but I will have.
Well, in here, and this is just a general observation, parking in the garage with great regularity. Are we at city staff parking shortage that can't, is that an ideal situation or I was fearful, is the roof going to fall in on the next floor down?
Okay, so for the record, John Flansburgh, Director of Public Works. The roof structurally is compromised to the point where we need to replace it. So we've placed some tarps on there and for the to get positive drainage where it needs to go, and this money here would allow us to actually remove and replace that top deck. The structure itself is sound. It's just the concrete on that one layer we need to remove and replace.
Okay, so that would go back to my first question is there a imminent demand for parking on our most upper level from our staff or staffing projection?
So what we find is that typically the parking garage meets our parking demands. On high council days or sometimes in the midday weeks, we get more parking than is available, and so people go through the garage and have to go back out and find someplace else to park. I believe we have enough parking for the demands we have currently, and that having the roof in place will give us that little extra that we need during the higher peak times.
Okay.
I have found that sometimes staff are parking along First Street, after Center, as not to use the garage. And then we also have the parking over by the City Plaza in that sort of parking area. Ideally, all of those folks would come into our garage and we would be able to not have kind of that unsightly parking area and perhaps even do something with that small parcel there.
And again, forgive me for not being at the last meeting, but I bring that up along with the 200,000 for the first floor restroom, which we haven't really gotten into that. But I'm not seeing a lot in here, whether it's from room tax or general funds that utter the words housing and homelessness. Did I forget nothing? Okay. Sorry, I missed that meeting.
Can I ask a question also?
Go right ahead.
I don't understand why outside plan review for large-scale developments is a building permit fund application. Now, my understanding is that would be something like Stonegate, where we did hire someone on contract to review, but that was a planning document, and planning documents go into the general fund. So what sort of outside plan review are we talking about here? Planning, or building? Because, you know, I'm hearing one thing, we can't use the building fund for this, but then we're using it for, you know, it seems like we can use the building fund when the developers walk in with a development to analyze it, but when the council wants to do some planning, we can't use it. So what was the thinking
Madam Mayor,
there?
if I could clarify, I sit on the BFAC, and that funding is for building plan reviews that are submitted that are over the capacity of the staffing we
Okay,
currently have
okay,
to handle.
okay.
So multi-story buildings, development like
seen
if
too many of
West Fourth
those.
Street ever goes,
Yeah.
the plans for that, we don't have the
Okay.
staffing to get those done in a timely
Okay.
manner. And some of the expertise that's needed for those
Okay.
high rises.
Okay.
is
If
to
Cara-
get- to
if
hire somebody to
Caramella
do
comes
that.
in with, you know, 50 single-family repeats, that sort of thing?
Claudia Hansen, Planning Manager. It's more for larger buildings downtown, so we've got a lot of the building wraps that have been proposed. Back in the day, the Silver Legacy was one of them. We haven't
Yeah,
had anything on
I
that
just haven't
scale,
s-
But we haven't had anything this scale at this time.
Now-
Typically, the single-family repeats would be able to be handled
Yeah.
in-house.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean,
It's gonna
you
be
know, back
larger
to the thing of
structures.
what's going on with all the tear downs, what's being built, does this budget presume and know something that we don't know? You know what I'm saying? Like, do you know that there is a high-rise building coming in somewhere in the downtown area
we don't have
that you've been
specific-
giving any advance notice that, you know, we don't know about?
No,
Okay,
nothing,
okay.
nothing large scale. But if
Okay,
something, like
okay.
if the Texas project did come in, or Jake
Okay.
has proposed something,
Okay.
or some of the
Okay.
the larger building wraps that
Okay.
we've seen
Okay.
proposed.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out what's getting baked in the budget, because a lot of people are wondering, what's going on with all these tear downs? What are we going to see being built? We're seeing a lot of displacement. Okay, thanks.
All right, at this time, we have to take a break, Madam Clerk, and we will resume, and what do you think?
We are hopeful for noon is what we are hoping to have a quorum
Okay.
back at the dais, as
So I'd
we do
ask
have
everyone to be back here
substantial
by
amount to go
12 noon.
through.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk, are we ready to get this going?
Madam Vice Mayor, we are all ready to go. We can reconvene when you're ready.
Let's reconvene.
As a reminder to council, there are only 4 present at the dais, so please do not leave or we will break quorum.
So for the city council, we provided the CPI increase for the salaries. All cell phones, you'll see this pretty much throughout all the departments. Cell phones have been moved to communication. So there's a change in the budget for that. And then we added for the council some funding for the strategic planning. The city attorney, so you'll see for each department.
Why did we move all the cell phones to communication? And is that in IT, or what department did that land in?
It's in IT, and so they can better manage it as one contract.
Oh, okay.
This is also a part of the move away from cell phone allowances to city-owned cell phones per public records law.
So for each department, you'll see an organization chart, and then the following will be the numbers. So I just, the next department, we're talking about the city attorney. This is how the city attorney department is currently structured. Within the city attorney's office, the only thing that really has been adjusted is the salary adjustments per the MOU changes that have been approved. And you'll see the risk fund that is managed through the city attorney's office is, we'll be talking about that when we talk about non-general funds.
So I'm the mid-person. Wait. City attorney.
For the city clerk, this is how the city clerk's office is currently structured. In the city clerk's office, the program changes are the adjustment to salaries for the MOUs. We added an election cost of $50,000, and there's $24,000 we added for severance costs for an anticipated retirement within the department that the department really cannot absorb the cost. In the city manager's office, this is the structure of the city manager's office. You can see the white boxes really are a reporting structure of other departments within the city, up through the city manager's office. That's why they're not blue, because they aren't actually city manager employees. But that's how the various departments report up through the city manager's office. For changes to the city managers, we did the salary adjustments again per the MOUs. The cell phones have been moved to communications. There was one position was moved to community development. We added the BID costs so that we can fully implement the BID effective July 1st. And we added the funding for those franchise audits, which we think are really important to start that process.
Few questions. First of all, on these three departments, is one to presume that when it says salary adjustments, that the salary adjustments are pursuant to the resolution for the non-bargained group people?
The salary adjustments are everything the council has approved.
Okay.
Whether it be an MOU or a resolution, everything
Okay.
the council has approved to adjust those salaries.
Okay.
It'll also include the standard, like merit increases that happen in the course of business for those that are eligible for those. We do we do project that, but again, that's not a guarantee necessarily. So we're looking. But
Okay,
those are included.
So I'm to presume that the city manager, the city clerk, the city attorney, who have independent authority in their offices, only make salary adjustments pursuant to the resolution of the non-represented.
Correct.
And then the other question is, there's a big jump in the services and supplies for the city manager office. What is that all about? What's going on there?
That's primarily the bid.
Oh, that is the bid.
That's
See,
the
and
bid.
the bid in in your first slide, and this one doesn't have the numbers. What is the number for the bid?
It's $750,000. I just had to confirm.
We're bringing $750,000 to the bid this year in general fund?
That's the obligation of funding, but a good portion of that.
From the assessment.
So there's an
Yeah,
assessment.
okay, it is
The
an
city has
assessment.
to
Okay,
pay.
okay.
The city's
Okay.
assessment. So
Okay,
this is
okay.
what we have to
Okay.
pay into the bid.
Okay.
But
Okay.
Our assessment's $750,000?
No, not entirely. Caleb, help me. So there's a couple different things going on. We have $725,000 of in-kind services that we're providing. That's the police support. And in addition to that, we have to pay assessments on the properties we have within the boundaries of the BID.
When we approved that, those services were picked up supposedly by private contribution. We were down to like $150,000 was gonna have to come out of our general fund. Now we're
Correct.
Now
but
we're
we
talking
have
about
to- this is-
$750,000.
Well, this is budgeting for that. So the source of funds is general fund and those donations. The donations, I think, are almost 100% cover the general fund's piece of that. but we have to budget for it, so you will see your services and supplies go up. We have an offsetting revenue.
So I didn't see that in our revenue side of our budget.
It's included in the miscellaneous revenue.
City Manager Newby, would you like to?
We can give you an overall kind of recap of the
I want to
exactly
see that
what's in the
itemized broke out,
BID.
because
We will do that.
if this bid's gonna cost us general fund $750,000, then there's a major
No.
problem.
No, and it's offset with the associated revenue from those donations. So overall, the net cost to the city is very small at this point, and we will get you a complete itemization of that.
City Manager Newby.
Yes, we will bring that back to you on, if not before, but present that to you on Friday. My understanding is that the discussion here is just making sure that the money is available, but that the donations are coming in over time. So, but we will get that for you, obviously,
So
to
just
fully explain it.
in order for us to spend the money, we do have to appropriate it, and we do have to show it in a budget. But we do have offsetting revenue that will fund it, and we also will have some funding that if it comes in, say, this fiscal year, we make that as an assigned fund balance that goes specifically to the bid. When those expenses start coming in, we have that offsetting funds to cover the expenses.
I'm not sure why we're doing a revenue transfer within our budget. The bid is set up a 501c3. They can contribute directly to it. We don't, why we're showing funds through our general fund, which if somebody comes up short, then we're the ones that got to make up the difference instead of them holding the obligation to make sure that the people that claimed they would contribute to make sure that bid worked do contribute. I can't understand why we're carrying the support of the success of that bid on our general fund. That to me is totally unacceptable. That is not our operation. That is their operation, and if they're going to be successful, they need to stand up and make it successful. But for us to say that we're going to put $750,000 of general fund money, and hopefully we'll get money to reimburse that into our budget, to me is not appropriate. I think that needs to be directly to the bid, let that bid function on its own. If they don't come up with the money to pay for the services, they don't get the services.
So we'll bring back a better description of exactly how that works throughout the budget. But we have an obligation as a city to pay our assessment, and we have to appropriate the funds for that. That doesn't mean that it's the funding comes from, it funnels through the general fund, because that is the place where the discretionary money goes. And it's an accounting function in order for us to be able to.
Our assessment isn't $750,000.
No, that's why I said I'll bring you back a report.
There's not an issue with us paying our assessment. Our issue is that our general fund is the one that we're budgeting to pay for the bid's operation. And if the contributions aren't made we're promised to make the bid function, it becomes our obligation through the general fund to make that happen, and I don't think that's appropriate. I think that.
So it's the city has an obligation to pay the assessments on the properties within the BID, and that's how we
Madam
do
Vice
that
Mayor?
is a variety of ways.
City
I think
Manager
we're
Newby, I
going-
think there's some
Yeah.
confusion.
Yeah, I think we're going around and around here, so I think we should just take a break on that subject and acknowledge that we are going to get more detailed information back to the council and go through it in full on Friday.
Councilwoman Breckus.
Yeah, I mean, I just saw in Washoe County's fiscal notes that they have set up a separate fund for marijuana, just so, you know, it's kind of a way to highlight it. And there is discretion, and you have set up funds is, you know, let's have the bid be its own fund, and then we can, you know, talk about it, focus on it independently and individually. I think that if that's the will of the council, that's what we could do for an initiative. I want to go to the, you kind of move fast through the council budget, the room tax fund for council. The $7,500 for Survey Monkey for Arts and Culture Department and the printing of brochures for $5,000.
So that's coming a little
Oh,
later when
I'm
we talk
sorry.
about other
Okay,
funds.
because you went through city council.
Right now, we're just talking about the general fund
Okay,
component
okay,
of each
okay,
department, and then when we get
okay,
to the other funds, we'll
okay.
talk about that.
Yeah, you know, and the budget book has the funds in with the tab with each department, so
Correct.
it's thrown me off a little bit. I like that way. I like that way you did it, but okay, thank you.
City Manager Newby, may I ask a question? What time does our meeting start on Friday?
I believe it starts at 10 and is supposed to go until 2
I
p.m.
believe it's at 11.
Oh,
Do we have any flexibility of we've already posted for that meeting?
We have already posted and we are beyond posting timelines for a Friday for any amendment to time.
Okay,
It does begin at 11 a.m. and is scheduled to 2.
okay.
We can go past 2 or not?
You can go past 2 o'clock if that's the pleasure of the
Okay.
body, but we just can't start earlier.
And it starts at 11?
Correct, 11
Okay.
a.m. on
I know
Friday.
that this meeting has to adjourn probably about 10 minutes before 1, so we're going to have a lot left over for Friday, just so. Okay.
Question, I'm sorry.
Councilwoman Dewar?
Yeah, on the city manager's budget, and you may have already highlighted it, but on your previous page, on, I think you covered arts and culture. We heard a few comments today. I didn't know if it was already discussed, but,
I believe that comes with the other funds discussion as well.
so you're saying only room tax fund, but this, I know this is general fund, but the point is that a lot of the budget, is my understanding, is in the general fund. You've got the public art coordinator and various other things. And I don't know, do we have no general fund in art? It's all room tax or?
No, it's a combination.
Okay, so I guess I was just gonna say, just ask you, Manager Newby, if for Friday you could just take a look at that with Alexis and just see, what I heard them asking for was greater authority to review and make recommendations. That was one thing they asked for. So for example, they mentioned where we give recommendations for our town, which falls under events in my mind, but also to Pioneer Theater, which doesn't. I think they were asking for greater input and discretion. For example, when we did the Arch, they would have liked to have the Arts Council, Arts Commission have some input into that. Okay, that's just a small example. But they're also asking, obviously, for little additional funding and with due respect to all the other things. Just as we put in a small number, $40,000 for the historic person, there may be a small ad or a small something that at least recognizes their issue. I mean, a police officer, it might be $150,000, $200,000 with loaded benefits and all that, you know, vehicles, equipment and all that. They may be just looking for some small ad, so I just ask you to take a look at it, okay?
sure, we can add that to the list. I think the first issue is more of a policy issue than a funding issue. So we can
Exactly.
certainly
That's what I was
go
saying.
for it.
Yeah.
Okay, continue on.
So for our civil service department, this is how that organization is structured. And within that program, there's very few changes. We're just make the salary adjustments per the agreements and move the cell phones to communications. For community development, so here's the first org chart where you see a green box. And the green box is the proposed new position for this, this department. And so what has been done within this department, there's several changes that have been added. So again, the salary adjustments, the moving of the cell phones. We did move one position from the city manager's office into this department. That's, we removed several pieces of one-time funding because they are only one time. So we've added to this $25,000 for the business license module in Acela. The historical resource consultant is budgeted in this budget. The funds for the Title 18 update. And we increased some funding for regional planning according to what regional planning was going to invoice us for. So we've increased the funding to match that.
Right.
Councilwoman Breckus.
Can we get an explanation on why the city manager's office decided to add a position to this department? I felt this department is too big, too many things. and getting done, and some not getting done, well. And so then, the response is, let's add another position. I'm trying to understand what's going on here. And I'm talking about, and I know we're in a development crunch, but I think the planning and the federal programs is getting short shrift. So why are we doing this? Why are we adding a position, and what is the position?
Director Jensen is coming up.
Good afternoon, Council. I apologize I wasn't here earlier this morning for the discussion. We had a lively debate at regional planning on affordable housing that I didn't want to miss with our consultant who was in from out of state. We have a couple different things going on in community development. One of them, we have an employee who's been working out of class for 5 years doing Acela-related duties. And it is time that that person be moved to the appropriate department, and that he was a code enforcement officer who'd been working out of class doing this. And so to make ourselves whole and to bring our code enforcement position back together, we are funding that out of a mix of general fund and also out of BFAC funding, since that person also inspects buildings. In addition to that, we have an employee who has moved from the city manager's office into housing and neighborhood development, who's helping particularly with the shelter. And so we have a position that is created there, but we also had a position that was closing in that department, or in that division. So we have multiple pieces that are going on. We also have a two part-time business license officers that are being combined into a full-time position. So we have several moving pieces that are going on in the department.
Okay, well, that's useful. I mean, I voted against the agreement for the city to manage the shelter because I felt it was in the county's toolbox, and they're funding the shelter, and now we're bringing in more general fund that is very valuable for us to do shelter work. And that's, obviously people need to be sheltered. I just wish that, the county was doing that, and then now there's more evidence that we're having to, go in deeper on this, whereas I think we have other needs that, for example, straight ahead housing. So, that's
Councilmember
not
Breckus, I think
very
it's probably more apt to say that the person is working on homeless policy more largely written, not necessarily just the shelter, but as we move forward with the CHAB and with other changes and some affordable housing policy, the person's going to be working on all of those things.
But it's an office assistant 3. Is that a policy level position?
The position that was changed over from the city manager's office is actually a management analyst. I don't believe Mr. Jensen talked about the OHU position.
That's an additional one. That is completely funded through grant funds from the CDBG, the ESG program, and so forth. So that one is not funded with general funds.
So you're bringing a management analyst. I don't know. I guess, maybe the org chart for the CD department could be a little bit better shown, because it's senior management analyst. It doesn't really show you, what, is that under planning? Is that under community department? Is it community development? It's just, I don't know. Maybe this could be looked at a little bit.
Okay. This is an abbreviated. If we had our full org sheet here, it actually specifies what division each group is in. Those headers are just simply missing on this particular budget sheet. But if you had the full one, it would say that's the Housing and Neighborhood Development Division. The Senior Management Analyst is Elaine Wiseman, who administers the program. And then we have 3 management analysts under her who handle CDBG, who handle homeless housing, and then also our policy person that Manager Newby just referred to.
That'll be the management assistant?
Management analysts. The 3 management analysts are CDBG, our home fund program, and then the policy role that Manager Newby referred to.
And that'll be a new hire?
That's the person's already
existing.
brought on board, but it'll be reflected in this budget year.
The new hire would be the office
Yeah.
assistant 2, which
Oh,
is
sorry,
denoted in green.
Right.
And that person will be sitting at the entrance to CD on the 12th floor. Right now, there's no one sitting there. So on that floor, we have We have OCCE, we have the liaisons, we have community development on the other side. We have the government affairs in there, we have sustainability in there, but no one actually greeting individuals who walk in. So that's what that position is for.
And the person has secondary duties also, which include our rent voucher program processing all those applications and sending them either to me or to Elaine for signature and review.
Okay, so the policy, we have a housing policy analyst, management analyst.
Yeah, correct.
And that person's already started and is working on housing policy.
Yes, that person was a CMO position that was lent to CD this past year and is now officially being brought into the department.
Okay, I guess that's new. I didn't know that. Haven't seen that person, haven't met him. That's great. Looking forward to their work product. Thanks.
I think you have met him. We can talk about that after the meeting today.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilwoman Dewar?
Yeah, excuse me, Eric.
Yes.
You started this community land trust for affordable housing, right? So that requires, as I understand it, taking some of our lands and utilizing them for affordable housing. And so I guess I was just wondering, is that incorporated into your budget moving forward with that program?
Yes. Actually, Jeff Limpert is the lead
Okay.
on that, and so it's in his budget, but CD is supporting him in that position.
Okay, being in the redevelopment area?
Yes, we're supporting him in the community land trust, and so we're involved in an ancillary role,
Okay.
assisting him.
All right, thanks.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So, for the finance department, there is one new position. This is in sewer billing, to help keep up with the new accounts that we keep getting. So what has been done within the finance budget is we've done the salary adjustments, we've removed one-time funding, and that sewer position that you saw on the org chart will actually be discussed when we talk about the non-general funds, because it's in the sewer fund. For the fire department, you see the fire equipment superintendent position as a new position because it didn't exist within their programs before. And for the fire department, the program changes again are the salary adjustments. We removed their grants, their strike team revenues. We've added that fire equipment superintendent, and we added funds for some of their leases and to increase their portion of the regional public safety training center costs.
What's going on at the center that we need to spend more money there?
You mean at the training center?
Yeah.
I believe it's just the regular operating costs. There's a small increase in the overall portion that the city has to pay.
Spike.
Actually, there were a couple of changes that have led to increased costs for not just Reno, but the other jurisdictions. Chief can handle that.
Exactly. Thank you, Manager Newby, Dave Cochran, Reno Fire Chief. The TMCC pulled out of the regional training center. So the cost didn't go away. Their cost was redistributed among all the participants, including RPD, including the county, including Sparks.
That's the reason?
That's the reason for the spike in the cost.
But you also have normal increase every year, right?
Things you learn.
You also have normal increases every year.
I think, Chief, the question was what led to the withdrawal from.
Yeah, that's a good term for it. It's a cost share, exactly, and it's a rolling 3-year average based on how much you use, how much of the allocation you use, and so it's distributed. That allocation is distributed based on your use among the participating entities. We had an entity pull out, and so the costs were reallocated.
Okay, so that's down in the weeds for purposes of today, but maybe a separate briefing update on why and the how, because I mean we see that as, oh great, thank you NSHE for that cost shift, But I'm sure there's another story to it and there's more background to it. So
So-
I think it'd be good for us to just get a handle on it separately. Else, another.
Agreed.
I think we might
yes.
share your view.
And I think among staff, we have had conversations with both RFD and RPD about going forward and maybe some changes down the road that we would want to make with respect to training.
And that's exactly what I was going to add. We've discussed alternatives, and there's some viable alternatives out there.
All right. So for HR, as we discussed earlier, there is a human resources manager added to their system. This is how that department is functionally organized. For the changes in there, what we have done as Mandy has reviewed her department and looked at the needs and where we can be, provide some additional service to the entire organization. It was important to move a position into the workers' comp, which is funded by the Workers' Comp Fund, to better manage our workers' compensation. And hopefully, as we actively manage workers' compensation, we will see the costs for that program go down. The human resource manager position, like I said, is to be determined. We added the manager position and then started questioning ourselves on what's the appropriate position and what's the biggest need, and whether it be a human resource manager or something with training in the title. We're still working out that particular nuance to the service HR will be providing. So, but the human resource manager position is slightly more expensive, so we don't feel the budget would be hampered if we go with a different position. And if we do go with a different position, to Council Members Breckus' point, the delta, the difference will go back into the general fund as unspent money. We have moved the target solutions to the IT budget. Again, it's something used citywide. It is a technology function, and it's more appropriate to be in the IT department so they can help manage that. And we've added the funds for the class and comp study.
The human resources manager position is going to be an appointed position under the city manager's appointed positions?
I don't believe that it's currently listed as one of the appointed positions.
For the record, Mandy Buller, Human Resources Director, it's a position we would create. Human Resources Manager would be a position we would create, and it would be the manager's decision as to whether it would be one of the appointed or not.
So just a little background, we had a civil service request to change criteria for a civil service position recently, and which was turned down. And I've got a concern that this new position is an attempt to be able to get an appointed position so that they can put the person they want in it around civil service.
Mr. McKenzie, this is not the same position. This is a completely different position.
If I may, we always had this employee relations position that never got, that was your position, right? Labor relations?
I was the labor relations.
Yeah, and that wasn't appointed. And I do believe that if we go ahead and agree to a position, that it should come back for the council to make a decision, based upon a recommendation, whether or not it goes on to the appointed list or not. I concur with Mr. McKenzie.
Ultimately, the appointed list is in ordinance, and so to change ordinance, it would by definition come back before you.
So if we don't see it, if something's made otherwise,
So if the position is created, and as Ms. Lochner said, we at this point don't know if it would be a human resources manager or titled something else. The human resources manager, as she mentioned, is at a higher level, so that gives us confidence that whatever the position, grade level it would be covered by the budget. But it would default to a civil service position unless it was on the list of exempt positions that is controlled by the ordinance that you approve.
yeah, but we may want to take a look at this new position if it's a whole new made-up thing and make a decision whether or not we want to change the ordinance or not. So I think it should be brought back to us regardless.
I don't believe that positions outside, we will work with civil service on the position classification as necessary.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it's the policy jurisdiction or need for the council to get into the weeds on the job description and qualifications. I think that's something between HR and civil service as necessary.
I think we can talk about this offline, but I disagree because there's a number of positions within the HR department that are appointed. And if those aren't being filled as appointed positions, then I think we need to understand why those aren't being filled, if those are the ones that our ordinance shows as the important positions in the organization, and why another one is being filled. So I guess we'll be watching to see how this plays out. I don't know if I'm comfortable going forward with a budget with a position that I don't know what it is, to be honest with you.
All right. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so for our next department is the Information Technology Department. And so you do see a new position here. This is, again, where we took a higher level position and split it into two IT technician positions. They are intended to help support the police department. So while we don't assign particular people to the police department, we provide services associated with these two FTEs to ensure that their needs are met, and that is how IT is proposing to support them in the coming year. So for IT, again, we've done the salary adjustments. We've given them all of our communications, all our cell phones. We've moved some of the software costs in from other departments. We've increased funding for the radio system and for some Microsoft Office upgrades. As you can see, the need for that with the snafu of the charts earlier, that's why we need a Microsoft Office upgrade, because sometimes when we send those documents, we lose formatting and we lose numbers. So that's a very important thing for us. And in addition, so I talked about the reorganization that we've done to try to provide some better support for the police as they look at adding technology to their services to kind of augment the, the reduced staffing levels that we have. So for municipal court, there are no changes to their org chart. The changes that we have done here really are mostly salary adjustments, and we moved pro tem payments to be temporary salaries to better capture what they are, and we've removed the one-time grant funding. For Parks, Recreation, and Community Services, you can see the position there, the two maintenance workers. Those, the parks maintenance worker ones, that's the position for the weeding program, I believe, that we talked about earlier. And again, it was a half of a person to get two full-time people. So we've made the salary adjustments per the MOUs. We replaced grant funding for the river cleanup crew so we could keep that crew. We've added some funding for the weed program, for the tree and program, and again, moved the cell phones to communications. So for the police department, you can see there are positions added here. So the police assistant and the evidence tech in the middle of the org chart, those are to deal with the body-worn camera program. The two CSOs in the far side there are really to add some additional staffing when you don't necessarily need to have a sworn police officer on site, that you can use a lower level position so that we can keep our police officers out working on those much more needed areas where we need their skills and training to be involved. So for that particular position, again, or that department, we've made the salary adjustments according to MOU, we've removed grants, and we've increased some of their motor vehicle rent just because of normal cost of business. And you'll see the positions. For public safety dispatch, this is how they are currently structured. There are not very many changes that have been made to this department. We've made the salary adjustments according to the MOUs. We did use some 17-18 salary savings to fund some dispatchers through a temporary service. Again, when you use your salary savings, it really should be to augment the services that those positions would have been providing to the system, to the organization. So it is appropriate in certain cases to use salary savings for temporary staff so that you can keep providing that service.
May I ask a question on this? I never knew that we use temporary services for dispatch. This is the first, I noticed that last night when I was reading the materials. I've never seen that.
It's often retired dispatchers that will come back and fill in for holes that we have in the service.
Oh, okay. Okay. So
they are temporary employees and they've retired from the system. They're well-trained. When we have needs, there is a pool of people that are willing to come in and help fill those needs for us.
Okay. And then, I mean, that gets into the whole critical labor shortage thing, that we can do also.
Mm-hmm.
But the decision's been made to use them through a temp agency.
Well, we fill in for the need when there's just simply not enough staff. So right now dispatch is really close to fully staffed.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that we don't on occasion have some additional needs. So, if you have, okay, thank you. So Public Works, as you can see, there's a couple new positions within their division or their department. And the ones that deal with other funds, we'll talk about when we deal with other funds. So you won't see them, they're not general funds. So that's what I'm trying to say. What you see in the adjustments to the Public Works Department from the general fund side, you'll see the salary adjustments according to the MOUs and the movement of cell phones to communications. So as we go into other funds, you'll see where some of those other things come in. So the first of the other funds we wanted to talk about is our HUD and state housing, the Low Income Housing Trust Fund, and the Community Assistance Center. So we're really telling you the overall resources we have. As you can see, in the grant funds for 17-18, there was a large amount of money that came in grants. We have taken that out because the grants, we don't have new grants. As new grants come in, we bring them forward to you and then they would get augmented into the budget. But right now, so that's the big drop in resources is primarily from grants. And then this is essentially how they spend their money. Again, you'll see the drop in services and supplies that would be associated with the grants as well. For the street funds have a variety of sources that come in for their resources to be available to spend. As you can see, the street funds are primarily funded through taxes. And so there's about $44 million in resources available. Again, this includes your fund balance, so it's not necessarily that's $44 million you want to spend, but that's what's available resources. And then the expenditures associated with that. So for this particular area, we have added that senior civil engineer. It's one position. It's split between streets and sewer. We have the brine machine purchase, the sidewalk repair, and the salary adjustments associated with the MOUs.
You know, if you listen to RTC, they tell us that the fuel indexing hits the cities also. So under that assumption, if I'm understanding that right, the fuel tax of 6,500 should be indexed, right?
John dance.
For the record, John Flansburgh, Director. The fuel tax is indexed. The percentage increase that we receive on the fuel tax indexing is fairly small. The difference between the amount of growth that you see between the RTC fuel tax funds that go to them and ones that come to us is they are actually indexing the federal and state portion taxes as well. So they're actually getting an index on a very large base, if you will.
Yeah.
And so that increases the funding available for them at a much greater rate. But we do see some increase in our revenues through the fuel indexing, but primarily your fuel tax is relatively small. I want to say it's like 28% of the overall revenue coming in, and that the majority is coming in from your property tax.
From the override.
The override.
And then what's the debt expiration situation? Is this year that those debts go away? Is that why we see those transfers from SAD debt, or?
So in fiscal year 19 is when the last payments will be made.
Okay.
Based on fund balance, we requested that we begin our the higher street program this year, and then we'll have sustainable funding in around the $12 million a year for our capital outlay for the neighborhood street program and pavement preservation.
And that's why you're bringing a body on to help?
Correct.
A half body?
Yeah,
Okay.
This was one of the requests we had.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor? Thank you very much. I do know that we have to wrap this up here shortly for another obligation. And again, I wasn't at the last budget meeting to get this on the record, but I think it important that by the time Friday comes around, that we look at ways that we can fund, whether it's the motels to homes or some of the voucher programs or some of the things for some of the interim housing solutions. I would suggest, and of course the council would have to go along with this, that the $650,000 for the top layer of the garage and the $200,000 for the bathroom on the first floor at City Hall go into programs related to housing and homelessness, as they are intimately involved, given that housing is the #1 issue, particularly for our most vulnerable that we're facing right now. And I didn't see dollars specifically allocated to assist those individuals to stay in their homes and those that get displaced to find other places to have a roof over their head. So in trying to find revenue to maybe dedicate $1 million, which I think we can definitively do, I just found $850,000 that I would suggest we move over to a different priority. That was a lot, but I know we have to leave.
Councilman Bobzien.
Yeah, I was holding a question from the very start of this because I was thinking we were going to do breaks for questions. If we could go back to one of your opening slides related to OPEB liability.
Go back.
And you referenced the fact that we had, restore workers' comp and OPEB liability funding levels. The fact that we had was it the pie chart that was before this?
That one.
Right there.
Yeah, no, I was actually thinking the other one, but this one also proves the point. It's fine. No, either one of those. So restore, the priority being restore workers' comp and OPEB liability funding levels. I don't know if it's possible to do this by Friday, but maybe before we do adoption, it is important to this process. If we could get just sort of a recent historical on the VEBAs and how much we've been funding them and what that curve bend starts to look like because of that. I know that when we started incorporating those into the various contracts, it was my intent that we stay on track with that and keep striving to incorporate that concept in as many of the contracts for the groups as we could, with that understanding that it was a long-term chipping away at that liability. So that is a number one item that people to this day, constituents still talk to me about, and for good reason. So it is one of those long-term threads that we all have to keep track of, and I think it's important for us to remember as we're about to adopt this budget, kind of where we are in that progress of trying to get out ahead of that liability. So just some analysis on that, so we can see it and we can share it with the public.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Can I have a comment? All right.
Councilwoman Dorr.
Yeah, so also for when we return on Friday, I'd love to get just an estimate on what it would cost to do a Southeast Reno area plan, so I can incorporate the Caramella, the Western Skies Road, the project that's in the middle of zoning. We have Daybreak coming up that is being considered Sunny Hills. I've got to pull all this together with the transportation and know that it's going to work. And so I don't know what it would cost. I mean, I'm willing to donate some of my council funds even this time to help get started, but I don't even know what it would cost. So if you could come up with a little estimate, yeah.
If I may, John Flansburgh, Director. The Regional Transportation Commission has a transportation study for Southeast Reno.
Okay.
They will be beginning that shortly after the Southeast Connector opens up.
Okay.
We wanted to wait till we got the Southeast Connector opened, and then we will incorporate the new traffic information in. The additional development that's occurring, that'll go into the traffic model, which will inform also, so not only the condition today, but as we look into the future, what we could expect. And we expect to get a lot of really good information out of that.
And would there be money then to like fix some of these roads?
This is the first step. You want to identify where your capacity improvements might be needed, and then you will prioritize those projects, which the RTC would look at their overall programs for prioritizing improvements.
So maybe what I would need is an abbreviated area plan with the transportation part being done, which is the expensive part, being done by RTC, but there's a broader part as well that deals with schools, open space, parks, and those kind of things that I have constantly been asked by the residents. I think I mentioned I was there at 7:30 this morning with Jack Dolan looking at his project and, you know, all the other projects. So we drove everything. So those are just some of the challenges that before we can approve any more zoning, upzoning, downzoning, rezoning, you know, new developments, we've got to get a handle on this. So I want to, just a ballpark, Madam Manager, I don't even have a clue, okay? If you could talk to the planning people and just find out what something like that will take. The other question I had was, earlier this year, we all took a vote to support the Moana Pool and start setting money aside, I think, for operations. I think there was going to be 300,000. And I just didn't know if that starts this year or where that fit in, or, you know, is it incorporated somewhere, or waiving? Yeah.
Go right ahead.
My understanding, and staff, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, no, because we don't have a pool to operate yet. But my recollection of that discussion at the time, and this goes back to earlier public comment that we received from members of the Arts and Culture Commission about reservation of room tax, I made the case then, and I will continue to make the case, that that is a, you know, tourism industry supporting endeavor on our part. And so we do need to start, I believe, looking at using a portion of the room tax for that $300,000 contribution that we're going to have to make once the pool is up and running. So I don't know if that's anywhere in the current budget's thinking, but that's my understanding of where that's going, that's just over the hill.
Well, I just wanted to get an update on it, and maybe you can just tell us what, I remember you saying earlier this year you were going to set aside some funds or start a process. And the reason I need to know is I need to know how hard I need to be working on this project with these people, and if there's going to be funding, and, you know, where that all stands.
Understood. We'll get you an update on that.
Thank you. And on the room tax piece, I guess since we didn't cover that in detail today, I assume you're bringing that back?
We'll start there Friday.
Okay, so to Councilman Bobzian's point, you know, we did hear from the arts community. They are looking for a small ad of some kind. One idea that we have is we can continue this meeting and start earlier at 10 o'clock instead of 11 on Friday. I don't know if that's even possible, but we don't have to adjourn.
Yeah.
Oh, you have flood? Okay. No. I think that you misunderstood the start time. I got that. But what I'm saying is that even during this meeting, I got texts from previous council members who said that they've done those kind of things as rather than adjourn, continue. So I just wanted to throw it out to our manager as another operational tool. So, Okay, thanks.
All right. With that being said, I know that you guys have appointments that you've got to get to, so I'm going to send it back to you, Madam Clerk.
Madam Mayor, if we can move to public comment.
Okay.
Aziz Shirazi would like to speak and general comment.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before I begin, what is the total expenses that was on your report? The total expenses for everything? No, you have the revenues as 208 million, and then I went over all the papers for every department, and I calculated about 160, so it was about 40 million missing, so I didn't know if you knew the number offhand. Okay, and it wasn't anywhere in the report, is that correct? It's in the budget. Okay. Could you turn that on for me, please, Madam Clerk? Okay. Oh, wait. Yeah, keep going. Thank you. Okay, so my comments have to do with kind of my outside perspective on the budget, and I wanted to thank Ms. Jardin for coming up with $850,000 to be given to other departments. From this graph shown, you guys fall $10 million less than your revenue. The next one. Okay, so for this one, you increase services and supplies by $300,000, but you only increase salaries and wages by $3 million. I just spoke with the Law Enforcement Coalition of Nevada, and they told me that $300,000 can't even buy a radio. So it's a little bit inconsistent to have your services and supplies only increase by $300,000, and you have salaries and wages increased by $3 million. So when you have your salaries and wages increased and you need to add more staff, you also need to add to services and supplies. The same would go for the fire department as well, same. And for the council project selection needed, you didn't go over this, but your printing costs, I believe most people use online for now. And for SurveyMonkey, I believe that you could try a little bit harder to decrease those costs as well. You also didn't go over the HUD, but my question is, where is housing solutions for the current crisis that we're in? None of it is mentioned, and I usually don't see anything mentioned on council agenda. Parks and Recreation, that is too low of a budget for Parks and Recreation because, as it is not said here, but in another paper you said that there are new parks coming online, and you only have a $600,000 increase for salaries and wages, and I believe most of the full-time employees earn about $60,000 a year, and then you only increase benefits by only $60,000 as well. And then the services and supplies is really low. You only increase that by $2,000. And so these are kind of my comments as an outside perspective, as a businesswoman, and as a citizen of Reno, that I think this budget is trash.
Well, thank you.
Madam
Okay.
Mayor, we have no further comment on that. We're just looking for adjournment.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
No, sorry, Councilmember McKenzie, give me a motion.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Motion carries unanimously. Good job, Councilmember McKenzie.
And as listed here, and then plan unit development pending approval would be Prado Ranch. And then we looked into, as we looked at capacity, what are kind of the future crystal ball type projects out there? And these were some general ones that we were aware of, 3 multifamily projects and a couple industrial commercial. And this is the graph that's the most important part here, which is showing the treatment plant capacity versus actual. You'll notice in 2017, we were up closer to the 2 MGD. That was infiltration back down at 1.7. Today, that's where we are. As we start looking at the incremental capacity being added to that, where you see the red circle, is where potentially we could have, based on the conversation